All right, we can get started. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. You're joining Jefferson Frank and Cascadio on a webinar regarding AI ops. And quick introduction, I'm Julie Amitatelli. I'll be helping to moderate this. I'm an account manager and associate VP with Jefferson Frank. We specialize in AWS recruitment, and we're partnered with Jared, the CEO and founder of Cascadio, who will be sharing his topic of AI ops. And really quickly, what we wanted to do was let you know why this is really important to us and critical actually to anybody that's interested in developing an AI strategy in general. To stay competitive, to grow, to differentiate, having an AI strategy is critical. You've probably heard this from every major researcher, every major integrator, countless studies and surveys, and pretty much everybody's advised specifically on an AI ops strategy. Naturally, when we start talking about this, we're going to start talking about AI talent and the AI talent shortage. We've had about 400 job postings, for example, just focused on AI with our internal database in the last 18 months alone. In almost every one of those studies, clients kept naming their talent gap as their number one obstacle to implementing or completing any AI initiative. So quite literally, everybody's also hiring for AI skill sets, potentially in your own company. So you could be competing with roles that sit outside of traditional IT as well. The data science roles could come from finance, sales and marketing, customer service, R&D. So it's not only important to have a strategy, but if you need a plan to support your staffing as well. We wanted to give some tips to any current teams, infrastructure and otherwise, and skill sets that they should be looking into. So leveraging partners like Cascadio is definitely key critical to being successful, but these are the top skill sets we've seen infrastructure teams and IT professionals in terms of planning, what they should have and what they should look for. So this includes an overall understanding of how machine learning works, along with algorithm management, which effectively allows you to audit any kind of AI ops environment. Understanding application technologies in reference to cloud resource management to work effectively with your development team and advise and manage the cloud resources they're procuring. And then overall security and problem resolution, probably the biggest focus we've seen in the last 2 weeks specifically. But most important, and probably true of every IT hiring or IT talent or IT skill set you're looking for, is the ability to communicate and understand with your lines of business. We hope that these are helpful highlights, and we have plenty more in regards to talent management and staffing during your AI ops journey. And the best advice that we can offer is to form great partnerships and leverage companies such as ourselves and also Cascadio. So we're thrilled to sponsor the following presentation by Jared, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of it. We're definitely thrilled to share with a premier partner. And Jared, Cascadio, please, if I'm turning it over to you now, and I'll be back on. If you have questions during this presentation, please send them in chat directly to myself or Jared, and we'll circle back then. Thank you.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone, or early afternoon as it may be on the East Coast. I'm Jared Reimer. I'm the founder of Cascadio. A company was started 14 years ago, is based in Seattle with our Cloud Center of Excellence in Metro Manila being where most of our AI ops and cloud engineering talent is. Seattle is the Wall Street of cloud, with all of the dominant cloud providers having their primary engineering centers here. But as it turns out, to the point earlier, there's a massive deficit of talent. The demand for cloud talent broadly, data sciences, AI talent specifically, the demand is skyrocketing, especially pandemic. Now everyone, all of a sudden, their digital strategy and transformation is the priority. So the demand for this talent is skyrocketing. The cost of it in North America keeps climbing. And what we found is that the talent exists outside of the country. So I would encourage you to be open to computer scientists, data scientists, others with the right skill set and background, because one thing that we have learned during the pandemic is that you can be anywhere, you can work anywhere, knowledge work jobs. We have good enough networking and technology like Zoom that whether you're in Hawaii, New York, Alaska, or potentially with the Starlink service from SpaceX. You could be backpacking out by Mount Rainier in the wilderness and literally still be doing what I'm doing right now. And that's pretty magical if you think about it. So I think we all agree cloud is the enabling platform technology or technologies that enables the digital economy. The pandemic has accelerated the transformation and adoption of all things digital, remote work. So what we're going to talk about today is how Cascadio applies data sciences, artificial intelligence, machine learning, et cetera, to the operational telemetry that comes out of IT systems. So specifically, almost every business has some set of IT systems. These are usually business applications that collect money, manage equipment, manage personnel, manage supply chain. These IT systems leave a signature, sort of like exhaust. And most companies do not capture this because they don't know it exists, or they only use it for forensic purposes when something breaks. It turns out that this data is immensely valuable because you can feed this data into machine learning systems, and the systems can actually start making predictions about what should happen next based on the data that's been observed thus far, and similar data from similar customer deployments, even if the customers are not the same company. Okay, so sort of like Tesla was able to develop cars that eventually literally can drive themselves and make the correct decision in an emergency more accurately than a human can. They're basically at that point now. How did they do this, right? It's a giant big data and ML problem. No other car company has been able to pull this off. So Uber has spent billions of dollars trying to perfect it. Mercedes Daimler has spent billions of dollars trying to figure out how to do it. There are some things that are sort of close, like Volvo has pilot assist, where you can take your hand off the steering wheel for 10 seconds. This is not the same thing, right? So why is Tesla winning? Why is Tesla valued the way it is? Because they are really good at AI. I would argue you need to get really good at this in the context of your business and what you produce, what value you offer your customers. But when it comes to your IT systems, you don't have to figure it out because we've already done it. So we're going to show you how, without even spending any money, you can actually get this technology, make use of it. And then, of course, our hope is that you'll be so impressed that you'll choose to partner with us for professional services like cloud engineering or managed services like 24/7 cloud operations. But you can use our platform, our technology, without any of that, and you can use it today without a credit card or any sign up. So we hope you'll check it out and give it a try because we're really proud of it. And everyone that's seen it says, yeah, this is a really good idea. So without further ado, I am going to share my slide deck here. Hopefully that screen share is working. If the share is not working well. So what we're going to talk about today is Cascadio's AIops solution for cloud and on-premise. This would include legacy workloads. So these would be workloads that have not yet been migrated to the cloud, and that may well include workloads that reside in a physical data center, network assets. It may well include cloud assets in a VMware like private cloud that a lot of companies have bought from managed services providers. So regardless of where your IT systems reside, this solution should be able to collect data from them and give you the benefit of AIOps right out of the box. Okay, so what do we do? What does Cascadio do? We've been here 14 years. Our mission is to help companies make good decisions around cloud adoption. The promise was it's all so easy and simple. The reality is it's actually really complicated to get this right. Below is a diagram of a hybrid customer who has some of their infrastructure in Amazon Web Services, some of their infrastructure in a conventional data center, and networking interconnects that link their physical data center and their legacy systems and their existing network to their cloud deployment. This really is not something you should do learning on the job. I would say adopt a reference architecture, partner with a company like Cascadio. There are lots of cloud service provider partners out there. And if you already have a vendor who is a certified, AWS or GCP or Azure partner, and you're happy with that vendor, by all means, don't feel obligated to use us, but we are here happy to help if and when you need us. So I was told there's a problem with the screen share. I'm going to restart the slide share. Give me one moment, please. I apologize for that. So hopefully the slides are now shared once again. I will resume. Okay, so what is Cascadio? We do three things. So we've been doing this 14 years, as I mentioned. We're based in Seattle. Our US engineering headquarters, Canada, we have engineers who've been with us for, I think, a decade there. And then in the Philippines, we've had people that have been with us 14 years the whole time. So we have extremely great employee retention, longevity, tenure. Why is that important? Because for us, it's extremely disruptive to our clients when they're not working with the same engineers on their projects. So we view it as a key competitive differentiator that our people stick around and that you get to know them. So if you are working with us for professional services or for managed services, you're not dealing with like an anonymous, I don't know, SaaS service where you don't really have an account manager. You're dealing with the same humans, both engineers, operations personnel, and account managers day in, day out. We think that's really different and special because most of the larger competitors, of course, have turned this into a much more robotic experience. Cascadio recently, as we announced, was majority acquired by Globe Telecom. Globe is the largest cellular and fiber network provider in the Philippines. I think they have 90 million subscribers, so massive scale telco. Globe also recently acquired the largest Salesforce partner in the Philippines and has a really interesting software development factory that does app re-architecture, mobile app development. So there's lots of value to be had there, and I would encourage you to check Globe out. They're an amazing company, very different than the North American telcos, much more entrepreneurial and visionary company. So really cool and very happy to be part of the Globe family. We are a premier consulting partner to Amazon Web Services. Why should you care? Because this is really hard to do, and almost all of the other premier partners are giant companies like Accenture and Deloitte that offer a very different experience at a very different price point. We are here to serve the customers that either aren't the target audience for them or that want something different, which is a born in the cloud native partner that does not have ulterior motives and agenda. So our only agenda is the client. We don't represent formally or resell or sell the products and services of the cloud providers. Our company is vendor neutral. So we're also partnered with NetApp and with Google Cloud and with Microsoft Azure and Kubernetes. Xenos is a really cool monitoring system for conventional IT environments. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that's a company worth checking out. We've worked with them for many years and written Zen packs, which are integration modules. And then Equinix is the world's largest colo company and interconnect. So for cloud networking interconnects, they run the big interconnect points in all the world's greatest cities where you would bring your circuits if you were going to have a connection directly to AWS, Azure, GCP, or some other cloud provider. Okay, so what does Cascadio do that is really cool with AIOps? We can take a customer, regardless of where they are, and deliver 24/7 managed services, and we can usually do it in a day. So most managed service providers take 60 days to onboard and operationalize a client. We, on the other hand, have automated this to the point where even customers that don't have monitoring tools, we can deploy them programmatically, quickly configure and operationalize them, and get them up and running and supported 24/7 from the first day. Now, if you have a really unusual corner case, a very complicated networking scenario, it might take more than a day. But for the common use case where maybe you have a legacy server room or data center, maybe you have VMware in your data center, maybe you don't. Maybe you already have an AWS deployment that somebody did a lift and shift or a manual build on. We can onboard those same day and provide 24/7 managed services. And even if you don't need managed services, the platform gives you the power of AIOps by taking the data and doing all of the magic that we're about to describe with it. So we meet you where you are, okay? Even if you're not in the cloud, even if you're just getting started, even if you have a cloud deployment that's not gone well, because of cost overruns, because of security issues, because it was done incorrectly by the wrong person, whatever the situation might be. Our goal, our intent is to meet you where you are and help you, okay? So this includes poorly architected legacy applications like big monolithic vertical line of business apps that were written in the 80s and 90s that are still running. We are subject matter experts at helping fix that problem in the cloud. Similarly, if you did a lift and shift, oops, I'm sorry that happened. Lift and shift usually ended badly for most of the people who did it. We definitely don't recommend it, except in like kind of emergency scenarios where you need to do a data center evacuation. But I would say, it doesn't matter to us because our job, again, is to help you and help you iteratively improve over time, leveraging the data that we collect from your environment. So we can do a bunch of magical things that I can go into in depth if you'd like around machine learning. The general gist of this is we notice when things are behaving differently than they normally do. We work to understand and infer relationships between different systems and system components. So for example, there's a correlation between your network activity and your storage activity. If you have an application that reads and writes to and from disk and serves traffic over the network, we can infer those relationships without being told they exist based on the data. We use natural language machine learning for tickets and for customer interactions. So we try to understand who the actors are, what the intent is, what the actual severity of the problem is, because everything says urgent. How do you know what's actually urgent when you run an ops center? It turns out machine learning can help classify and triage alerts and correlate them. Predictive analytics, this is something I mentioned earlier. So the idea here is to forecast what should happen next, take a measurement, test the measurement against the prediction, and if there's a deviation between the prediction and the measurement, you have an anomaly. If you have a cluster of anomalies that you know are related systems or metrics, that's usually a leading indicator that things are bad. And it turns out if you do this correctly, you can usually detect IT problems before they become outages. There are exceptions. A big exception would be a power outage or a fiber cut. Those are spontaneous external events that you have no way to see in the data. But that's not what causes most IT outages these days. Most IT outages are application related, like the process got stuck, it ran out of memory, the disk got full, there was a denial of service attack, there was a failed deployment, things got overwhelmed and reached some critical tipping point, and now the database is too slow and everything else is breaking. There's all these systems failures that occur, but in terms of physical infrastructure failure, if your IT systems are in a proper data center, not really a big risk, honestly. Your data center operator should have redundant power, UPS generator. Your data center operator should have route diverse fiber. If they don't, fire them and replace them with a cloud provider because the cloud platforms offer all of that and more. So my belief is you can prevent or at least have early warning of the overwhelming majority of IT systems failures, outages, service degradation, performance issues, what have you, because the data will tell you when things are going sideways a lot earlier than a traditional monitoring system will. So a traditional IT service management monitoring system, like SolarWinds, for example, typically is looking for a threshold to be breached. The disk is 90% full. That is the threshold of alarm. Now we're going to raise our hand and say someone should take action. The problem is if you wait until the disk is at 90% full, you have a very brief window, if it's filling fast, to fix it before it hits 100% and the application fails. This is an obvious, simple example. What if the disk is always 20% full? If it's always 20% full and it starts to fill fast, why would you wait until it hits 90% to alarm? Because 90% is the threshold. This is dumb. What you can do with AI is say, this disk has always been 20, 21% full for the last 90 days. And suddenly the disk is filling and it's filling fast. Maybe by the time we're at 25 or 26%, the thing should say, hey, what's going on here? And it should notice that the related system that that disk is connected to is experiencing a surge in processor activity and a surge in network activity. Those things are probably all correlated, right? They're probably all part of the same event. Most traditional IT tools don't understand those relationships. They treat them as distinct elements because one of them might be a server, one of them might be a router, and one of them might be a SAN device, okay? So this is way better than what we call toil, which is what most IT operations has been historically. And this only became possible in the last few years because we reached the point where the technology, the software, the networking, all of the cloud infrastructure, where all of that came together. One thing I'm going to point out, though, this is not where the robots take our jobs. That comes probably 5 to 10 years from now. In the next 5 to 10 years, especially with critical systems operation, there's always going to be a human on the loop. There's always going to be a pilot flying the 777, even if the thing is on autopilot 99% of the flight. Even if the plane can take off, fly, and land and taxi all by itself, humans will expect there to be a pilot and a co-pilot sitting there for a long time. Also, when I've talked to people in the defense industry working on the unholy union of artificial intelligence and weapon systems, one of the things they've stressed is there will always be a human on the loop, but not necessarily in the loop when it comes to weaponized AI. So for example, there's a concept of algorithmic warfare where if you are attacked, the response is immediate and automated, and there's no human intervention, but perhaps there is a human kill switch or approval step before the counterattack is launched. So, as I mentioned, Cascadia offers a fully managed SaaS style solution for managed service providers and, of course, for end users, companies that have cloud and on-premise environments. So we can deliver our same technology to other MSPs. And in fact, we have massive scale telcos that are doing exactly that using our platform technology because it enables automation, it enables rapid onboarding, it enables scale. It enables us to meet customers where they are. It gets the customer this capability right out of the box, and we can do it basically for free, right? Because the data is so useful to us that we're willing to incur the cloud infrastructure cost of hosting that data because it makes our system smarter. So what is AIOps really? This is Gartner's description, and I think it's the best one. Monitoring is data collection. You might or might not have this today. SolarWinds, Anos, CloudWatch metrics from Amazon, whatever. Service desk, this is like Zendesk, this is Remedy, this is your ticketing system, your help desk, your IT operations people, PagerDuty, people getting paged out of bed at 2 a.m. on New Year's morning because the disk filled. Automation, almost nobody has this, as it turns out. I've seen behind the curtains at hundreds of companies, big, smart companies, young, small companies. This is incredibly rare, very, very rare, very rare. I don't know why this is not more advanced. Now, you can bet all of the big successful tech companies have perfected this. So Netflix and Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Facebook and these guys, this is how the whole thing works. Why does it work? How does it work? Because they have AIOps at the core, okay? What is AIOps? You take the monitoring data. You have a connection to your human service desk. You get good at learning what breaks and how to fix it, or how to anticipate failure, and you automate or you self-automate remediation actions or preventative measures that solve the problem before it becomes customer impacting. How do you do that? Machine learning, big data, leveraging the data set that you collect, not only from monitoring, but from the service desk, like your interactions with your managed services provider and IT department and your cloud provider and your other service providers. But what you're really after here, guys, is the bottom half of this, okay? If you do this right, the human ops workload, the toil, goes endlessly down. The operating cost to run your IT assets goes endlessly down. The performance of them gets endlessly better. Where does this all end someday? I think it ends in everything becoming software as a service, meaning I think most companies will eventually operating zero IT assets. What is the intermediate step? It is to have somebody like Cascadia as your managed services provider to do operations at a level that you probably wouldn't ordinarily be able to achieve in-house, if only because the cost of the talent, the number of people required, the systems required. You need to stand on the shoulders of the giants, right? Build on top of the cloud platforms. Don't try to reinvent those wheels. The cloud providers have spent billions and billions of dollars giving us the technologies that enable this. We didn't invent the underlying technologies. We simply built on top of the platforms. In our case, those platforms would include Amazon Web Services for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and streaming data analytics, as well as Influx Data Tick Stack and Xenos for conventional monitoring. Those are other companies' technologies that we have used to enable a higher level business service. That is exactly what we think customers should do. Don't reinvent these wheels. You don't need to rebuild this stuff. If it's out there, especially if you can buy it as SaaS, that's usually the fastest path to consistent operational excellence. So, Cascadio IO, if you want to try it, you can work with your account rep, or you can go to our website and sign up. You can self-onboard, connect your cloud deployment, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. If you have Xenos, you can connect that. If you don't have Xenos and you want it, we have automated deployment scripts. We can help you get monitoring for your current environment very quickly. We usually would bill for that as professional services because it takes some bit of work, but we can certainly get you started, or you can do it yourself. Xenos offers a free download that you can get like a virtual machine, I think. So you link your data sources, and then the platform does its magic. And if you have Slack or Teams or email, that's how we'll communicate with you with what we find. So how do you know that it's secure? We built it on the shoulders of the giants on their platforms. We use Auth0 for all of our credentialing, and machine-to-machine authentication and encryption is all SSL. All of the data that streams into our system is SSL encrypted over the internet. We take security very, very seriously. So don't let the 60-day to 1-day miracle make you think that we're cutting corners. Rest assured that we take the security aspect of this as the most important piece of it, because we know that's one of those mistakes you only get to make once. We are acutely aware of the sensitivity around customer data privacy, security. We consider ourselves to be strong customer privacy and data security advocates and follow all of the best practices. We are independently audited by ISSI. Amazon Web Services requires that of us on a regular basis so that we maintain our MSP status with them. So third-party auditors validate that our systems are secure, our processors are secure, and our applications were actually recognized by that auditor as a key competitive differentiator and unique technology advantage that Cascadio has that they have not seen at other MSPs. So how does it work behind the scenes? We have this thing called the Cascadio management instance. It's a little virtual appliance that runs in your environment. It can run in your on-premise environment, in which case Xenos is the monitoring engine. It can run in your public cloud environment, in which case we don't generally need Xenos, and we use Telegraph and other custom code that we've developed to collect metrics. That data gets pipelined over the internet, SSL, into our platform where all of the AI ML magic is. And then we work with customers through email, through Slack, through PagerDuty, VictorOps, Teams. Cascadio has a fully redundant, geographically distributed 24/7 network operations center with certified engineering people at their keyboards at all times, on all days. The two hubs are in Seattle and Quezon City, Metro Manila, but Cascadio currently is operating virtually, as are virtually all of the other tech companies. So another cool thing, if you want to run a Windows workload on AWS and you don't know where to start and you want to get it right the first time and you don't want to spend a lot of time and money, Cascadio and NetApp partnered to build something that we think is of great value, and we also give this away for free. So you can get a turnkey, well-architected, hardened Windows Active Directory, SQL Server, shared drive, NetApp file system with Cascadio.io, managed services, all of that magic in a reference architecture, turnkey, ready to go, automated deployment that you can press a button, build it up, try it, use it, press another button, tear it down. You can customize it, modify it. You can pay us to customize or modify it if you don't want to do that. The point is, this system lets you have a well-architected, complete cloud data center in the sky running on AWS with all of the components you would need to run an enterprise in production with redundant domain controllers, clustered SQL Server, NetApps, managed file service for NFS and CIFS file shares, all of that. You can have that immediately and without any direct expense and provide managed services for ongoing operations. So if you're curious why we would do that and how we make money doing it, the answer is we want to be your managed service provider. At the end of the day, the best thing for us is if you say this is fantastic and we'd love for you guys at very low cost to provide us with a 24/7 human and AI managed services product. That's the path to revenue. And then of course, engineering, customizations, workload migrations, those are things we do as professional services. So this is what the UI looks like. It's super simple. You pick your current tools. It's click to deploy. You don't have to be an API person or a software developer to do it. We also support Blue Matador. So if you don't feel comfortable deploying a collector into your cloud environment or your data center, you can use Blue Matador for agentless metrics and events. This is a SaaS service that is designed to do exactly what I just described. So there's a lot of these that are already built-in plugins, and they're guided. So you click to deploy. You don't have to be an expert. Very, very straightforward. Once you have your data sources, your inputs, your outputs connected, the idea here is an analytics pipeline. So the pipeline has some number of inputs. It has some number of outputs. One of them might be the Cascadia Network Operations Center. Notice these guys are on the hook. They are responding. So when things are going sideways or broken, or if you have a question or need support, someone, a real human that knows what they're doing, is there to help you. But you will also get automated alerts, notifications, significant events, notifications around anomalies, like things are behaving differently than they normally do, et cetera. How does that happen? What's not shown here is the giant brain in the middle, that is Cascadio.io. As I mentioned, that's built on AWS and the tick stack from Influx Data, but is a substantial bit of intellectual property that Cascadio has been developing for the last several years. We actually, I'm very proud of this, got mentioned in Forbes magazine when we announced it, and have consistently been featured in subsequent news coverage of AIops. So this is a key competitive differentiator for our company and an area that we've spent a lot of time and resources developing, not only software, intellectual property, but the team, the people that know how to do this and have real world experience doing it. So you can have some number of inputs. That could be Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud, Xenos for your data center. You have some number of them. You have some number of outputs that might include, might or might not include the Cascadia Ops Center. You don't have to use us. You can run your own ops. It includes something like Slack typically. So that's how you're going to get real-time back and forth signaling and communications. It might include email. We don't recommend email because email is subject to spam filtering, lost messages, out of order delivery, delays. You know, email is not suitable for real-time operations. It's the last resort, not the first resort. So you pick the outputs, you pick the inputs. We can do this as guided onboarding, meaning we can set it all up for you if you don't want to do it. But generally, most customers have one pipeline. They have all of their inputs going to all of their outputs. You can be more granular. For example, if you have a different team that runs your cloud deployments, you can have your cloud input, let's say it's Azure, and you can have your team's Slack over here for that cloud team. You can have a separate pipeline that is for your conventional IT operations in your data center. So you're not limited to just one. Under the hood, as I mentioned, we use all sorts of really cool machine learning technologies. I will say, to the point earlier, the talent, the people that actually know what they're doing to build this stuff and make it go is the limiting factor. The technology exists. The infrastructure exists and it does work. I mean, like Tesla has made cars that actually drive themselves better than you can drive even on a good day, okay? How is this possible? Because the technology, all the components, the software, the capabilities, the cloud platforms, network, all those things finally are ready. But the humans who know how to make this go are very rare. Cascadio is proud to have a bunch of them. We could put them on billable customer projects. We have instead chosen to invest their time and headspace building this system because we think that is a smarter long-term play, because we think it lets us serve a much larger number of customers rather than doing them onesie-twosie. So we spend a lot of our time, headspace, resources, internal planning, thinking, strategy around building exactly this capability, because we think in the future, the customers will only want to deal with MSPs that have exactly this. And in fact, the Amazon Web Services MSP Audit version 4 specifically has them check to see if you are developing and implementing and executing these kinds of capabilities. And if you are not, it is either a big kind of failing or it may be a disqualifier. So if you see someone who has the AWS MSP designation, that means they have been audited by a third party and probably have some set of these capabilities. We believe and have been told by others that ours is the most advanced in the industry and that nobody has anything even close to it. So here are some examples of what you would see if you wired this up to your systems. On the left, this is a notification from Cascadio.io to your Slack channel of your choosing that says your system, which we called Nimbus here, Xenos was the source of the data. The CPU load on some system is important, but what's more important is not that the load is high or low, it's that the load is doing something different than what it normally does. Why does this matter? Most IT systems are highly repetitive. They do the same thing all day, every day, over and over again. Maybe on the weekends, the volume goes down. Maybe on the holidays, the volume goes up. I don't know, but they're very predictable, okay? So the longer you study the history, the better you get at forecasting. If you're making forecasts and those forecasts are not being met with the actual measurements, maybe something is amiss. In this case, you can see dramatic deviation in the CPU load of some legacy server. This was deemed critical by the AI because it's never done this before, and we know the system is important. So there's a lot more detail below that's not shown here about the nature of the event. If you have managed services from Cascadio, our engineers immediately go over and look and figure out what's going on and hopefully fix it and prevent an outage. If you do not have managed services, you get the notification, you get to get out of bed, log in, and hopefully fix it. Good luck. Here's a clear. So this one was an email on the right here. This was a clear because things went back to normal. So for whatever reason, the anomaly ended. This is important because perhaps no further intervention is required. Perhaps the anomaly is good training data. So we always want to know, was this a good prediction? Was this valid? Was our classification correct? Was this truly critical? We want that feedback from you, from your ops people, because that helps us get better. So if you look on the right, you can manually reclassify. You can put notes in there. You can give feedback. You can provide instructions what to do next time. On the left, you can see Runbook recipes. These were built with the client. So what do you do when this alarm happens? How do you fix it? Here's the Runbook. Here's all of the data about the alarm and why it alerted, so that the responding engineer, whether that person works for you or for me, doesn't matter. They have all the data they need. They also have a button that says, this isn't really a problem. Don't bother me with this again, okay? You keep getting better and better at it because you train the system, just like the human owners of Teslas have trained their system. So you and I can look at this graph and we can say, well, something changed here and something else changed here, and this looks a lot like this, but it's taller and bigger. What's going on? So something obviously dramatic changed here, right? No question about that. A traditional monitoring system might wait until here or here to alert, and might wait 5 or 10 minutes to alert, and might not even notice, because if the threshold is up here, notice the threshold was never breached. This is still not good. If your IT systems are serving your business and your customers, you do not want them behaving in ways that are not consistent. Typically, you're aiming typically for it to be utility grade, right? So our system immediately says here, oh wait, something's going on. We intervene right away, or at least start to understand what's going on. Also, systems are very bad at noticing things like this graph represents this graph, but it's bigger, but it's still basically the same trend. Notice this is prediction models, okay, around load average, right? This is machine learning in action, guys. This is what it looks like if you visualize what's happening. This is how we deliver higher uptime, candidly, than most customers can achieve without us, because we have a competitive advantage that your business should have in its area of focus too. That is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So what do? We do three things. We help you with cloud engineering, workload migrations, architecture. We give away some of our tools like the NetApp Windows thing. We have managed services, 24/7, 365, human on the loop. We're on the hook, SLA driven, flat rate per month. We will be on the hook and run your operations with you or without you. If you want to just hand it off, we will take the whole thing on. And then the third thing is we build Cascadio.io, which is our platform for AI and ML assisted operations. So we believe in the end, you're going to cut 80% of the cost out of your IT because you have to, because your competition is going to do that. And if you don't, you're in a hopelessly disadvantaged competitive position. Why should you do all of this? Because in the end, cloud enables business agility. And if there is one thing that we learned in the pandemic, it is that business agility is really, really important, because being stuck with static infrastructure, being stuck with static IT systems, hardware, physical assets, physical humans, physically repairing server boxes, you guys, that's no way to live. You don't have to do that anymore. You shouldn't be doing that anymore. And I would argue if you are doing that at this point, you're doing yourself and your company or your organization a disservice. The disservice is that you're not leveraging the best available technology to free yourself to build business value in new areas that add new revenue, forward-looking business for your company. So my humble suggestion and recommendation, as someone who's worked in this industry my entire career, is look forward, not backward. Don't assume that the style of IT service management and operations that made you successful 10 years ago or 5 years ago will be the same as what will make you successful today and 5 years from now. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, this is a must win for virtually every organization, regardless of industry. So I think hopefully I've convinced you that we know what we're doing with IT operations. We would love to be there to help you figure this out for your business if and when you're ready to take that first step, or perhaps you've already started and you need a partner to help accelerate. So that's my pitch. I'm Jared Reimer, founder of Cascadio. Thank you very much for your time. And now we're going to take some Q&A from the audience.
We're just waiting for some of the questions to come in Q&A. So feel free to ask us directly in the chat. And while we're waiting, I have a question for you actually. Is there a number one mistake that you see people or clients make in managing their AWS environment? Is it different from clients that have hybrid environments versus clients that are born in the cloud?
Yeah, the number one mistake, and I think this is not any unique insight to me, I think most cloud people would tell you this. A lot of IT people have spent their careers doing things the way that we've always done them for 40 years, with change management, MOP procedure, manual, log into the server, become the super user, apply the patch. They run IT systems as if they're pets. Okay, if you have a pet, you take care of it, you feed it. If it gets sick, you nurse it back to health. If it dies, you cry. This is a losing strategy, right? It's like trying to keep something on life support forever. Eventually, you're going to lose. I watched someone do that with a pet once. They were determined to keep the thing alive far past what they should have. The idea instead is to turn your IT infrastructure into something resembling cattle. It's unfortunate, but cows get sick. When they get sick, you euthanize them because you have thousands of head of cattle and they're all genetically essentially the same. Okay, so in the industry, we call this pets and cattle. If your IT systems are pets, you're doing it wrong. And if you're building pets in the cloud, you are doubly doing it wrong. A, because that's not what the cloud providers are telling you you should be doing. So you're using the systems in ways that they were not meant to be used. And what you may or may not know is that those systems are designed very differently, and they don't have the same assumptions that you might have in your data center. For example, in your data center, you might have NetApp or storage, expensive, complicated, highly redundant arrays of storage disks that have been designed to never lose data and never go offline. Okay, they're very expensive because they are designed to be 99.99% available, and that means having a lot of internal physical redundancy, software redundancy, failover, failback, all of that. Okay, in the cloud, they do not generally build storage that way. So if you buy the default storage option in the cloud, which is what most people do, it is designed to be about as reliable as your average USB consumer hard disk. Why is this? Because most data does not need 5 nines or 10 nines of durability, but what you do need is cheap and fast. So you can think of it this way, okay? When it comes to data storage, you can have very high performance, you can have very high availability, or you can have very high durability. If you need all of those things, that is very hard and very expensive, okay? If you're willing to sacrifice durability, you can get high performance and you can get high availability, but you might lose some data. That is the default storage technology used in a lot of cloud deployments. And then the data gets lost by the cloud provider, and the customer is irate because you lost my data. And the cloud provider says, no, I'm sorry, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I delivered 99.5% durability, and I met that SLA, okay? So just because you bought it from one of the cloud providers does not make it magic and does not mean that they solve every problem for you. Quite the opposite. In many cases, you are responsible for picking the correct storage technology. You are responsible for backing your data up. You are responsible for being able to recreate your entire data center in the cloud from scratch if the cloud provider happens to misplace it. Okay, so if you do not do this correctly, if you build it by hand and operate it by hand, you are setting yourself up for an inevitable failure that will occur at some point in the future. Now, it might take 10 years or 100 years, or it might happen today. You're gambling, okay? And that's no way to live. That's no way to run critical IT systems anymore. You don't have to do that. So I would argue it is literally insane to do this, because the definition of insanity is repeating the same experiment and expecting different results, right? And that is what conventional IT service management has become. It is an endless game of whack-a-mole where you are running around, putting out fires, waiting for things to break, waiting for the new patch to come out from Microsoft, waiting for the window to deploy the patch. This is wrong, you guys. This is not the right way to do it. It's what made us successful. And how about this? It's like burning gasoline or diesel fuel. It has got us to this point, and you can still do it, but it's not what's going to propel us in the future. Anyone who has studied what's happening with EV technology, how much that technology is improving, just like solid state disk has basically eliminated most of the market for spinning hard disk, just like LCD monitors have replaced the big, bulky, heavy cathode ray tube of my childhood, maybe not everyone's, I'm old now. You guys, this is disruptive. This is a fundamentally disruptive moment in IT. The earlier you take it seriously and develop these systems and capabilities, the better, because this is, I believe, for most companies, the underpinning of how you get a competitive advantage and business agility, which you're going to need even after there's a vaccine. The really unfortunate news, even if there was a vaccine today, even if they could produce it and distribute it today and get people to take it consistently and whatever else, the habits, the patterns, those are now permanent because this has been going on so long. So even if the pandemic were over, IT, e-commerce, digital strategy, digital first, customers buying their groceries on a mobile app, movie theaters, all of those things are changed. I do look forward to going back to a restaurant someday, but the frequency with which people go to restaurants probably will never quite recover, not for a long time. So you have to assume these are permanent societal, consumer, and business behavioral changes. And if the pandemic hasn't convinced us all that agility is key, I don't know what will. There will be another pandemic. There will be another black swan event. It's inevitable. Given a long enough runtime, there will be another Chernobyl. There will be another Fukushima. There will be another COVID-19. There will be another event that will disrupt things in ways that no one anticipated. That is almost literally the definition of a black swan event. They might even occur with increasing frequency, because climate change will have a whole series of cascading effects and impacts that we don't understand, right? We don't fully understand how all of the world's systems work. Like for a long time, we didn't really understand how much of the heat load and the carbon was being absorbed by the oceans until we reached a saturation point, and then the oceans couldn't absorb it as readily. And we said, oh, that's not good. And we realized that all of our modeling was based on a flawed assumption or flawed data, because we underestimated how important that heat sink was, right? So we live in interesting times, but this technology is, you don't have to like it. You can resent it or hate it, hate the robots. It doesn't matter. The economics are such that paying humans, highly compensated humans, to do this toil makes no sense. So this is permanent.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The pets and cattle was perfect. And we have a few questions coming in regarding the, we'll run through them right now. So is your initial free solution safe to deploy on current cloud infrastructure?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Is your initial free solution safe to deploy on current cloud infrastructure?
Yes. So you can self-deploy, or you can do guided onboarding. You can get managed services, or you can try the platform. Yes, we can connect your current cloud accounts. And if you're not comfortable having us deploy our collector, you can use Blue Matador. Blue Matador is a SaaS service. They're a partner company of ours, and they do a great job at agentless metrics collection. So check out Blue Matador. They're good guys. They're really smart, and their product is great, by the way. It's expensive, but there's a reason it's expensive. So.
And second, so how much observability does this provide for cloud services? So does this capture Lambda metrics and logs, VPC metrics and logs, or visibility into Kubernetes containers?
Yep. So I don't know all of the granular details, but I can connect the right person to you if you'd like. So send an email after, and I'll introduce you to the right person to get all those details. I believe the answer is yes to all of the things that you asked, all of them, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'd like to be certain. And it sounds like you know what you're doing. So if you'd like to talk to one of the people on the team, on the product team, one of the engineers, we can facilitate that conversation.
And in relation, what do your system log metrics quotas look like? Or is it the same? He can reach out directly.
There's no, we don't have any sort of metrics quotas or anything like that today. We haven't had, like, influx data is designed for billions of metrics. The whole point, the whole reason we chose that platform, that analytics platform to build on, was it's designed for extreme scale time series data analytics, right? So that was the core. In the past, what we've learned with analytics, and this maybe is useful to somebody, if you have a true big data scenario where you're going to have like hundreds of thousands or millions of sensors, which we do, okay, effectively, there are specialized tools and systems that you would use for that scenario. Influx data is the one we chose, and we've been happy with that decision, by the way.
Would it be possible to integrate self-managed predictive models for an organization that already has some predictive analytics in place for operations?
Don't know. Same answer. I think the best answer would be, let me connect that person individually with the product team, with an engineer, and they can talk about the specifics of what that might look like and what might not be possible. I do believe, if it matters, that Kinesis, AWS Kinesis, is the streaming data platform we use. So if the current data is plumbed to Kinesis, that probably would make it easier conceptually. So follow up with me, and we will definitely make that connection. By the way, for those who do want to follow up with me directly, I'm Jared, Jared, at Cascadeo, CASCADEO.com. So feel free to email me anytime.
Perfect. I sent an email directly to that person, but appreciate it. We're
Great.
see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, we're about 2 minutes away from 1 o'clock here in Chicago and 2 o'clock East Coast, and almost lunchtime for you guys. So
That's right. I skipped breakfast too, so I need to get my my food after the show here. Thank you guys all for attending. Tremendously appreciate your time. I know your time is valuable. Hopefully you learned something today. I offer to be a resource anytime. So jared@cascadio.com if you have questions about cloud, data sciences, analytics. I might not know the answer, but I usually know someone who does. So if all you need is an introduction or a pointer to something, send me a note. Would love the opportunity to someday earn your business as your professional services provider, your managed services provider, or maybe your platform provider for AIOps. So with that, thank you and farewell. Have a fantastic day.
appreciate the opportunity.